you can get so caught up in those feelings, because I think for some people they genuinely believe they deserve whatever negative feelings are coming towards them, and you can become
and then
like
they
kind
become
of
self-fulfilling prophecy.
right, exactly. Yeah. So that was like the epiphany that I had, even just last night writing my most recent like blog post, was like just thinking about it from that context of like, is it actually a self-fulfilling prophecy, or am I making it so because I know that it's easier? You know, for
100%.
me, yeah, because like that self-fulfilling prophecy, I can blame it on that all I want, but at the end of the day, like I think sometimes I lean into the pain aggressively because I'm like, hey, I know what
You're
this
comfortable
is.
there. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's exactly
Which
what it
sounds
is.
messed up.
My therapist gave me that. God, when was this? I had a relatively. I didn't have the best relationships and girlfriends when I was like in my 20s. You know,
Most of us don't.
most of us don't.
No.
I didn't know what the hell I was doing. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. And I just remember I had this one relationship in my early 30s that went like, we didn't have those blow up toxic types of conflicts. And I remember like my therapist was like, cause I was just like uneasy about it. That was like, I was constantly kind of uneasy about it. Like I didn't trust it. It didn't seem real. I wasn't sure if she liked me the way I liked her, despite comment. Like I was just so used to just being in like this chaos that I didn't realize that I was just more comfortable there. And then when I was able to, she's like, do you think that you might be, I forget the exact word, but she's like, do you think you might be just more comfortable in this state of anxiety about a relationship than actually being able to enjoy it? Mm-hmm. And it clicked with me and it was like, oh my God, that's it. And that wasn't even just there. Like a lot of my like time growing up was constant state of anxiety, moving around all the time, not knowing, you know, if I'm coming or going, like all sorts of different stuff. And it was just, it was a real turning point to kind of have that, oh, I'm just more comfortable in a state of anxiety. And it was so freeing. I was so free after that. And, you know, just very like, I lost, like, the anxiety just fell off of me for all until Love Is Blind. But it just like, it fell off of me. It really did. Like I remember I even said when I was in the pause at one point, I'm like, I don't really experience anxiety anymore. You know, about certain things like work related stuff, but like, I don't have a constant state of anxiety anymore. And that was a turning point.
Until Love Is Blind.
Until Love Is Blind.
But no, I think so. What you described, like not just from the perspective of like relationships, but life. Like, so what you're describing is exactly like the epiphany that I had with my therapist about 3 to 4 years ago. Was I crave chaos in like a deep and unhealthy way because of what you described. I'm more comfortable in it. I need the fight. I don't know how to handle times of peace. I know how to handle conflict. I know how to handle the fight. I know how to handle anxiety. I know how to handle these things where I'm like, everything is firing on all cylinders. But you put me in a calm, comfortable place, and all of a sudden, I don't know what to do with myself. Yeah. And so I had to realize that and then figure out different ways to create the same chaos without blowing up my life.
Right. And how do you do that? Like, what are your coping mechanisms? Because I can imagine just from my own experience with stuff, like it doesn't just go away. You're just kind of keeping it at bay.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. Like the reality is like trying to rewire. There's some rewiring that people can do with their minds. I believe that to be true, but there are some things that are just so deeply entrenched in your DNA that like it's probably never going to change, and you're better off seeking an outcome where you just learn how to live with it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like that's what I do with the chaos is I'm not going to get rid of this anxious energy that lives inside of me. That's not a realistic expectation. But what I can do is find meaningful outlets. So as an example, I have a day job, but then outside of that, I bartend one night a week. And I do that as
There's
kind of
some
my
chaos.
yeah. Yeah, you're pouring alcohol to a bunch of grown adults and watching the mayhem ensue. Thankfully, it's a pretty low key spot, but nonetheless, it's still like when I'm there, it's the one time in my life where like I put my phone over here, and as long as we're like decently busy, I'm here. This is the only thing I can focus on. It's the only thing I can like give my attention to, and in a lot of ways, like bartending became like a therapy session for me. That, and then the other thing that I did was for a long time in my like early 20s, I was like dead set on being a stand-up comedian. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get back then it was, Comedy Central special. That was the goal, right? Now it's Netflix or whatever, but
you can do your own special on YouTube.
That's what I'm saying. Like now the barrier to entry has gotten so low. It's pretty not in a bad way. I just mean like it's just easier to put your stuff out there. But I was dead set on this, and then, life happened. I didn't feel as funny anymore, and I got away from it. And then now I have no desire to be famous for comedy, but what I do love doing is I'm in the Tampa Bay, like, stand-up comic like Facebook group where we post all the open mics. And so what I'll do is I'll find out an open mic's happening like tonight at Soggy Bottom Brewing in Dunedin, which is 20 minutes from my house. They're having an open mic tonight. If I just decided right now I could do the open mic, I would do it. And that's what I would do. I'll wait till like the last minute.
But is it like muscle memory if you haven't been practicing or performing and then you just go and you can do it again? Or is there...
So that's the trick, right? So if your goal was to make it as a stand-up comic, your goal should then be, I'm going to work on this bit. Maybe it's 2 minutes, maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes. I'm going to work on this thing over and over and over again. So every open mic you go to, every chance you get, you're going to run through this over and over again. Get so good at it that it becomes muscle memory. And then you work on the next bit. And then eventually you got 10 to 15 minutes, and then someone ideally would give you like a feature act where you could get paid a little bit, very little, but like it's still something. But you have enough material that works. Mm-hmm. So what I do, and this is where I can access that chaos side of me, is every single time when I decide to do it that night, that day, I write my material. It's fresh every single time.
Oh, wow.
So I get off work, it's like 5:30, and I eat dinner with my wife, and then I go in our bedroom and I play music, or I play like a stand-up comedy special as background noise to like fill it out, and then I just come up with something. And then I drive, and she goes with me, and I drive over and I do the thing, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't. But that's the chaos that I create. I didn't let her. I don't like using the word "let" with my wife, but like I was not a fan. I was not a fan of her coming for a very, very long time. But eventually I gave in, and I was like, "Yeah, you can come." And then now it's funny because she's like, "I get this nervous energy, but I know you secretly kind of like it when you don't do well." And I was like, yeah, a little bit. I mean, to be fair, I can't expect it to go well when I know I wrote this material 2 hours before I got here.
Well, and I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I've listened to some talk before, and a lot of times and even like Joe Rogan will say this, like you're kind of trying stuff out a lot until you perfect it. So like you're going to nightclubs or you're doing these open mic nights and stuff, you're trying stuff out. And then by the time you get that special or whatever, you've worked it all through various different audiences and know what resonates and what hits, and you can figure out your timing and your punchlines and all of that stuff. Is that true?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's what you need to do. That's why my plan of attack doesn't work if that's your goal.
Yeah.
If your goal is to make it, my plan is not the move. Because you need to get really good at whatever it is. And like you said, know the punchlines, know the beat, be able to augment it slightly depending on your audience, right? Yeah. Like I remember, so the first time I ever started doing stand-up comedy, this is back at a club that doesn't even exist anymore. But I wasn't even like legal drinking age, but it was a bar, and I still performed. And my first night I went up, I'll be honest, I like did very, very well. I got a lot of laughs. It was great. I made a fatal mistake though, which was that I thought, oh, I'm just good at this. And then I came back like a week later, and at the original time I went up, it was a bunch of college kids, a bunch of 20-somethings, all having a few drinks, all having a few laughs, and my material was geared directly towards them. So it was perfect. It was like catnip for them. I come back the next time, that audience wasn't there. It was actually a lot of people, average age probably somewhere like 48. And I'm trying this college material that like does not resonate with them at all. And
and you had all the swagger going into that.
Oh yeah, and I'm losing my mind. I cut myself. I had 5 minutes, and I cut it to like 2.5. I was like, "This is so bad."
Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.